Oftentimes in competitive Fortnite, we try to sort of focus on the things that are fun to us. And so this creates this effect where if we're already good at mechanics, we like to focus on mechanics because it's way more fun to train something that we're already exceptional at. But that's the issue. I really feel like a lot of the problems from people's tendency to train things that they're already good at, that's why they sort of plateau. I'll give you a couple examples, right? We'll talk about this a little bit. Let's say you want to be a very good employee at a big company, or, there's a whole bunch of skills we could discuss, but let's use this as an example, right? First thing that we want to do, I'll just make up 3 different buckets or categories that we could, use as an example. Maybe a commitment to excel, right? Maybe, I don't know, ability to learn, and the ability to work teamwork, right? We need to work with other employees to create a good product or any, it could be anything. But regardless, these are our 3 categories, right? And it's very important to judge yourself or be self-aware at what you're good and bad at, right? And this is I swear this is gonna relate back to Fortnite, and this is where it's gonna be very, very like eye-opening for you guys in terms of learning and getting better at the game. So in this specific case, I feel like a lot of people don't really understand what they're good and bad at. They're not aware, right? And even if they are aware, they don't appreciate how much they're good and bad at these things, right? So for example, let's say I'm the employee in this case. Maybe I have a really big drive to succeed, and I really do have this, right? My commitment to excel is really, really high. I really want to focus on getting better and making sure I get really, really good. Cool. That's good. Also, I'm actually good at learning these things. Maybe I pick up on a little bit of a nuance in terms of how my employer tells me things. I pay attention. I spend some extra time at lunch or like after work to really make sure I get this skill right. Cool. My ability to learn is also solid. Now, in this case, maybe I really suck at working with other people. Maybe I'm really socially unaware. I create problems where I shouldn't have. Maybe I start arguments and I create like really big drama situations. I'm really bad at teamwork. Now, in order for me to get promoted or in order for me to get to that next level, should I focus on what I'm already good at, or should I focus on what's holding me back? Pretty easy answer in this case. Now, why is it that when I go to Fortnite, when we have categories that exist, I'll literally name like 3 of the categories, and I do believe this is accurate. Now, my example with the employee may be a little weird, right? Like the random categories I just thought of on the spot. Sure. But these categories are very accurate, in my personal opinion. Number 1, mechanics. Very, very important category. Number 2, game sense. Another very, very obviously important category. Now, number 3, you guys probably wondering like, okay, like, well, what could this be? This is pretty much the whole game, right? Like a lot of people would think like, oh, game sense and mechanics is this is the entire thing. I would argue that there is a 3rd category that is very, very important that a lot of people sort of bypass or skip. Your mentality is crucial, and it almost encompasses how well you learn your game sense and mechanics and what speed you learn them at, because it's something that I feel like a lot of people just go past it. They're just like, oh, it's whatever, it's not important. A lot of people see the game as like mechanics, game sense, and that's it. But I personally think mentality is a very important detail, especially when it comes to performance, because if you play game 1 and you suck, maybe something wrong happens or like something unlucky happens, unfortunately, but you have a bad mentality, then yeah, your mechanics and game sense are going to suffer because of your impaired ability to make judgment on the game, right? And so this is another important category. I would argue that approximately these 3 are equal, right? I'm not going to sit here and pretend that game sense is like the most important thing. A lot of people would think that. I would say that I don't think so. I think these are very, very equal in terms of like 33, 33, 33. For the sake of the example, we can assume that. Okay, cool. Now let's talk about why people sort of suffer from not being able to improve. If you are already good at mechanics, in which case I think majority of people are already good at mechanics to some degree, right? I personally feel like you should not continuously focus on this. Now, this doesn't mean that you should stop training it completely. I just mean allocate your time wisely. Understand what you're good and bad at and allocate your time accordingly, right? And so if you're good at mechanics and maybe you have an amazing mentality, okay, then obviously your weakness or what's holding you back is game sense, right? If I have a ladder, guys, it's a very visual example, right? Let's say I have a ladder. This is what a good ladder looks like, okay? With this ladder, I can accomplish the goal. I can actually get to where I want to. Cool. But if I have a ladder that looks like this, right, then there's an issue. I can only get to this height. I can only reach this level. But in my personal opinion, I feel like a lot of people don't realize this in Fortnite. They just think that, hey, because my mentality is like bad or my game sense is bad, I'm more fitted to be a fragger. That's my weakness or strength. And not like, while it's okay to have some imbalance, an imbalance of, you know, too great of a difference is going to hurt you. It's going to provide a very big obstacle that it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna exist until you solve it. And so just to tell you a little bit of a story in terms of like what my issue was as a competitive player, I feel like, yes, my game sense was strong. Yes, I made good decisions. Now, it wasn't perfect. I'm not claiming it was perfect. Obviously, there was mistakes there as well. However, where could my time be allocated best? In my personal opinion, my fighting and my skills and my mechanics, oftentimes I would make the right decision, but then couldn't execute on it because I missed an edit. Something as simple as that. Whereas another player, a tier 1 player, for example, would not make that mistake and get away with it. They made the exact same decision I did. They did the exact same things that I did, but because they didn't miss that one edit, they survived that game and got second place where I got 12th. So it's important to recognize what are your weaknesses, what is holding you back, and this requires some sort of, you know, self-retrospective work. You need to work on yourself and sort of think about, okay, like, what do I suck at, what am I good at, right? And if you struggle with that, maybe you don't really see it that well, and it's hard for you to sort of judge yourself, cool, ask someone else that knows you very well as a player, because oftentimes your friends, and this is you have to be very careful here, because a lot of friends are yes men. They sort of encourage you nonstop. You need to find someone that's going to be very honest, and you need to tell them this scenario, like, okay, I need to hear it from you because I want to be honest with myself. I need to really understand what I suck at. This is what my teammates did oftentimes when I played with Bucky and Death, who were my trio back in the day. Both of them would tell me very honestly that I needed to play solo arena. Why? Because that's where my weakness was, right? And so there was times where I'd be reluctant to do it. I'll be like, oh, like, it's fine, I don't need to do it, like, let's just keep bothering me. But then the weeks that I did end up, you know, doing it, like after saying no for a while, just like, okay, fuck it, let's do it, like, whatever, I end up doing it a lot, like 4 hours a day solo arena. Just like, I feel like I needed to improve. That was my weakness, right? Maybe I needed to make better decisions in fights. My mechanics were lacking, and all those sorts of things. So cool, fighting was my weakness. I fixed it. I worked on it for 4 hours a week. I worked on it for 4 hours a day, and then I after like 1 or 2 weeks, it started to get better. And then you start to see the improvement. Those weeks in scrims were one of my best scrim weeks ever, like, and it was clear to me, but I didn't realize it at the time. So then I dropped solo arena, and then I stopped playing it, and then the weakness comes back. The hole in which what's holding you back, you become the ladder that I just showed you right here, right? But if you want to be a well-rounded, solid player, if you want to get to that tier 1 level, it's absolutely crucial you recognize what's holding you back, you recognize what's really, really hurting you as a player, and you work on that, right? As a professional player, as someone who's going to act professionally, you don't work on what's fun, which will usually be the stuff that you're already good at. Let's say I'm a very mechanical player. Let's say I'm Raider, for example. It's so much fun to crank. It's so much fun to like 1v1 PG people in creative, because it's like flashy. It's enjoyable to be good at something. I understand, that's human nature. However, it's very key, in my personal opinion, to recognize what you're bad at, and even though it's not as fun, go back to it and work on it, and actually spend most of your time there, right? That's what's going to net you the most results as a competitive player. And actually, this is what's going to net you results in any skill across all the skills possible in the world. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. It's just a very important reminder. I felt like I needed to make a video because I felt like this is what held me back as a competitive player. I would not realize immediately, like, okay, what's my problem as a player, and then go and work on it. When I did, that's when scrims were amazing. I played out of my mind. I would clutch crazy scenarios. I would do really, really good just because of the fact that I practiced my aim, my fighting, and my mechanics, because that's what was holding me back. It wasn't really the decisions. Obviously, I could have improved that further, but going from a 95% efficiency to 98 is not as impactful than going from 70 to 90. Does that make sense? Right? So like, I personally think that's where a lot of people should focus on. Like, if you're already amazing at something, cool, continue to train it, but like, pull back on a little bit. It's not what you should really be focusing on. What's really getting you killed in a tournament? Find that out, work on it, and I honestly promise you results that I don't think you've ever seen before. Find out what you're bad at and work on it diligently and put a lot of your time there, and I feel like you're gonna have a lot more success than you currently do now. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.